Welcome, everyone, to another edition of With an Expert. Let me remind you that this is a series dedicated to helping you to develop the skills you need to pass exams like IELTS and emigrate abroad. Today, my guest is Sam Varley, and Sam is an experienced IELTS teacher as well as an author of several IELTS writing ebooks. These books pay a special focus to vocabulary. So, Sam, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Andy. Pleasure to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background, Sam?
Um, about my background, well, I've been teaching English for over 7 years in a few countries like China, Vietnam, and in that area. And I've also been teaching online for over 3 years, including IELTS online.
Is it a very different experience teaching online?
Yeah, certainly is. I think I definitely prefer it though because I like being able to use the computer while I'm teaching somebody because I'm a very fast touch typist, and so when I hear people making mistakes or say some useful, interesting vocabulary or something, I can take a note while they're talking to me in a sentence, and it can be really useful for giving feedback.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, I find it much better, to be honest, as well. So what made you choose this career?
Oh boy, well that's going back a while. um, what made me choose it? Well, pretty much all throughout my life, I've been interested in other cultures and other countries and other languages as well. And so I always liked meeting people from other countries, and so that got me interested in it. Teaching was also something I always wanted to try. And so when I finished university, I took a teacher course and then went abroad to Thailand and started teaching there. And I loved it, so I kept doing it.
Great. Let's move on to talk about the challenge or the challenges facing IELTS test candidates. Now, you've identified a particular challenge they're facing with the products that you've developed. And what is that challenge?
Well, you see, I correct IELTS writing task 2 essays, and I've been correcting them for a long, long time now. And one of the main struggles I've noticed that students have been having with task 2 is with vocabulary and expressing their ideas. Like it's either they don't have enough range or they don't know exactly how to express themselves with the language they have at their disposal, or they're using the incorrect word, incorrect collocation, it's used in the wrong context, this kind of thing.
Why do you
So,
think they're struggling so much with vocabulary?
well, I think they're struggling so much with it because it's kind of difficult to find a good resource specifically to use for IELTS writing task 2. Um, because with IELTS writing task 2, it is supposed to be semi-academic writing and it's on many different topics. And so, well, there are various places you can look for vocabulary to help with that. Like there could be IELTS textbooks or newspapers and articles and this kind of thing. But regardless of all that, it still can feel a bit like a needle in a haystack with finding great vocabulary to use for your essay. So I think that's mainly the reason.
So what can go wrong for a student if they read a really good article on the internet and they find some good vocabulary there? Isn't it really easy just to transfer that into an IELTS essay?
Yeah, well, first of all, there's finding like the right article um, for your essay, because I kind of imagine, say, a student is preparing for IELTS writing task 2, so they're trying out many different questions, task 2 questions. They get one question which is about teenage conflict with their parents, perhaps something like this. Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? And so, how would they go about looking for vocabulary? well, they might look in topics like family or child development or teenagers, something like this. And well, yes, you can find articles on these topics, but I've tried doing this myself because I want to put myself in the student's shoes. And I was like, okay, I want to write this essay. So how do I prepare myself? Right, I'm going to read some of these articles. But then I look at the language that's used in it, and very little of it seems applicable for writing the essay. And that's the frustrating aspect of it, because you think, well, this article ought to be exactly what I need for this essay. But then when you actually try putting into practice, you find that I can't use any of these words actually, and it can be disappointing. So yeah.
Yeah, okay. So they're finding it difficult to transfer that vocabulary accurately into an essay. Is vocabulary important really for the grading of IELTS?
Well, absolutely. I mean, you could say it's one of the most important aspects of it. I mean, you need a certain amount of vocabulary in order to express your own ideas, your arguments, and explain them. And well, giving arguments and explaining them well is very important for the task achievement of the essay, of course. But apart from that, for higher band scores in the lexical resource, it's all about greater range, more precise vocabulary for conveying more precise meaning, flexible use of vocabulary, which would be things like collocations, and of course, errors and using the language naturally. So, if your vocabulary is weak in an essay, it could have a very detrimental effect on the overall band score.
So lots of good points there, especially about precision. And I think you said that lexical resource affects task achievement as well.
Well, sure. Because for a higher band in task achievement, you have to be giving relevant arguments for answering the question, and they have to be well explained, well supported, and well using precise vocabulary, like something that's concise and precisely explaining what it is you want to say and how it answers the question. That's how it can feed into the task achievement band score.
Right, so we've got lots of problems and lots of challenges, which is why so many people struggle with the IELTS test, isn't it?
Yeah, sure.
And you know, reading essays on the internet, reading articles, not necessarily a good solution because it's hard to transfer that. What's the solution? What is the solution that you have created to help candidates overcome this challenge?
Well, yeah, when I was when I noticed that there was this challenge, and I tried to look for myself for a vocabulary resource to help with writing essays, I thought, well, this is exactly something that's needed, that's kind of missing. And so what I wanted to create was an ebook, but also a kind of reference book to make it easy. And so with my ebook, it's arranged by task 2 questions rather than topics, because topics are quite difficult. Generally, task 2 questions have 2 or 3 topics attached to them, really. So anyway, it's organized by question, and the vocabulary, it's guaranteed that the vocabulary is going to be useful in the ebook because I've taken it from my own answers, from my own essays, answers to these questions. I've taken the vocabulary from those essays and elaborated on that by giving lots of synonyms, lots of different collocations. And so it can really give you a great resource for vocabulary for writing task 2. Not only that, though, there are also exercises to help you further understand the vocabulary and be able to make your own sentences in different contexts and for different topics as well. So it's not just limiting you to that one task 2 question. It's allowing you to use it in many other questions, other topics as well.
One of the problems I found, though, for students is that they learn this vocabulary, but then they can't use it. It's especially when they're speaking, for example, that they're pausing to try and retrieve this vocabulary. Maybe not such a problem in writing, but it just causes hesitation. It slows them down. Does your ebook help them?
Yeah, it does try to address that as well. I'd go back to the exercises. As I recall, with each chapter, like with each task 2 question that's addressed, there are about 10 to 20 comprehension type exercises and then 10 to 20 production type exercises. And it's all focusing on the same vocabulary, but looking at different topics so that you can see it being used in different ways. And with the production exercises, they're all about finishing sentences or paraphrasing a sentence or making your own sentence using the vocabulary. So the idea is that the more you use the vocabulary through these means, the more comfortable and confident you will in using it yourself.
Excellent. That's something that many ebooks or textbooks miss. And of course, if you're reading an article, you don't get that practice, do you? So that's really helpful.
Yeah, that's right. Sure, when you look at other resources for vocabulary, quite often it can just be a list of language, and maybe there'll also be some definitions or like one gap fill exercise, but it's really not enough to be able to take that language and practically use it. So sure, I'm trying to address that problem in this ebook.
Does it work?
Does it work? Does it work? Well, it's I'm currently still doing corrections as well, and it's always a joy when I can tell someone's read my ebook because, well, they're doing one of the questions, say, that's included in the ebook, and I noticed that they're using some of the language from the ebook, but they're using it correctly as well, and they're using it in a slightly different way, and well, it's just glorious to see because they really are expressing themselves a lot better, and it's bumping up their vocabulary band score. So yes, it is working.
Great. I mean, we'll tell people about how to get this ebook later on in the show. Let's just talk about other tools and techniques now that could be used to help people prepare for the test. Aside from your ebook, is there anything else test candidates can do to help them prepare?
Yeah. Well, there are like other IELTS vocabulary books and ebooks, but generally I've found that they are useful for the IELTS test as a whole and not specific to task 2. But regardless of that, you can still expand your vocabulary, and studying some of these ebooks or these vocabulary books can help broaden your range of vocabulary, and that could help you with writing essays. Something else I would recommend, though, is reading other academic essays. There are some websites where you can read other academic essays, not specifically IELTS. But the thing about these essays are that it's the right type of writing. It's not a news article, it's not a story or something, it's still an essay. And so that would also be an ideal place where you could get vocabulary to help with that problem.
Why do you say an academic essay? Why is that important? Is there different types of vocabulary?
Well, yeah, exactly. If you want to prepare for IELTS writing task 2, then reading stories or fiction may not be so useful because that kind of writing will likely have informal types of language, and with writing task 2, it's semi-academic, which basically means no informal language. You're aiming more for academic, formal type of language. So you've got to be really careful with that. And about other types of writing, like newspapers or articles, you have to remember most of the time this kind of writing is made to entertain and attract attention. And so it also is not quite the same. And it can be very noticeable when I read a student's essay that they use language that would fit a lot better in an article. And it's kind of flashy, snappy language, and it's completely out of place in an essay.
So they're learning to become journalists, but not necessarily pass the IELTS test sometimes, which is the problem your IELTS ebook addresses and solves, which is why it's so valuable, of course. But if students do learn vocabulary elsewhere and they want to know if it's formal or informal or idiomatic in some way, are there any dictionaries you would recommend that they could go to?
Yes, there is. There's a website that's lexico.com, which has quite comprehensive definitions in it, but at the same time easy to understand. It will also inform you that it'll also inform you if the language is informal or outdated, like old-fashioned, not used anymore, and it'll also give you some example sentences. Apart from that, about like formal, finding out if the language you found is good enough for essays, another website I'd like to recommend is ludwig.guru. So that's no www. It's just ludwig.guru. Mm-hmm. And this website is a very interesting one and useful one, because you can put in a phrase into a search box, and what it will do is it will search news articles and newspapers, including things like Guardian, Wall Street Journal, and these kinds of newspapers. And it will tell you how commonly used it is, like how many instances of it being exactly used in the same way that you gave it. So, for example, you could type in gain independence. You want to do the two together, put it in the search box, and it'll say 50 exact matches. It'll also show you the sentences that it got them from and a link to the original article as well. So that can be very useful. I mean, at least then you know that the language you're considering using can be used and has been used in these articles, in these newspapers. So knowing that means that it's certainly more likely than not that it will be good enough for writing test 2 writing.
Although, of course, we still have to be careful, don't we? Because so much of the internet these days, even the BBC website I found, because of the comments section, you can get search results using incorrect English written by a non-native speaker. Not necessarily a bad thing in life, but not good for the IELTS test.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, in life, it's not so much of a problem. The other frustrating thing for me, though, is when I'm reading other news articles, like on the BBC, but even some of the articles written by journalists having errors in them. I was like, no, don't write that. And you still have to be careful. It's another reason why I feel my ebook is so valuable, because the language has been checked and it is guaranteed to be good for the test and good for you to use. So yeah, there is that.
Excellent. Let's move on to some questions and answers now. We've had some questions sent in. One of those is, can your ebook help me to get a score of band 7 or higher? Is it aimed at that level?
Well, good question. Well, you see, the thing is in the ebook, every chapter has a model essay, which is estimated at band 9, the essay itself. And so the vocabulary taken from the essay is from an estimated band 9 essay. And the vocabulary taken also has synonyms, lots of extra language. So, well, it's an ebook that could help someone get to a band 9, basically. As for lower bands, like a band 7, band 6.5, or something like this, well, yes, it will help you get there as well. It just depends on how well you learn the language and how well you use it, how much you use it in your essay. So there is no limit to what kind of band score you could get with this ebook. Yeah.
Right. Now, of course, the task 2 is one half of the writing test in IELTS. And another question we have is, will you be writing any more ebooks in the future?
Yes, actually, currently I'm working on a second edition of a Writing Task 1 academic ebook that I'm working on. And, well, with making this ebook, I didn't want to just repeat the Task 2 ebook, but make it for Task 1. Again, I sort of thought, well, what's the main thing that people struggle with Writing Task 1 academic? And I feel it's more grammar than vocabulary. So this second edition Writing Task 1 academic ebook is about grammar, and it's a similar kind of thing. It's going to be using model answers and taking grammar out of them so that you know that this grammar can be used for this purpose. And it's going to give a list and explanation of all the complex structures, types of grammar that is used in the answers. And once again, lots of exercises to help you practice and use it. So it's very useful for that purpose.
Right. Sounds like that's going to be a really, really good resource. Somebody else has said that they're taking the general test, not the academic test. Will your Task 2 book help them with the general test as well?
Yes, it will. Something else that's in the Task 2 ebook is I also highlight common errors and some comments with the vocabulary. For example, a common error that students will make with paraphrasing child is that they'll try to paraphrase child with youth or adolescent or youngster or infant or something like this. And so I highlight what all of these words precisely mean and in what kind of situations they can be paraphrased for each other. And well, long story short, a lot of the vocabulary in Task 2, in my Task 2 ebook, is not like exclusively academic. It can be used in other contexts as well, like writing letters, even informal letters, possibly, because with writing an informal letter, it's not like every single word needs to be informal. You could still have more neutral kind of language.
So yeah, it's good for the general test. It's good for the academic test.
Yeah.
And we have a task, a new edition of a Task 1 book academic on the way as well. So lots of great resources to help people get them over that line. Often it's just a little bit of a push they need, isn't it, to pass that test and to live their new life.
Yeah, well, I can feel my students' frustrations when I'm reading their essays because I can kind of get what it is they want to say and what it is they want to express. And I say, this is incorrect. You should say this instead. They come back with another essay, and again, it's kind of limited. And so, yeah, it is frustrating to not have some resource to point them to, have a look through this and that will help address your vocabulary problem. So sure, I hope it will help a lot of students, push them forward, get the best score they want.
If anyone's listening and they want to know how to get a copy of this ebook, you just need to go to englishwithanexpert.com and click on the ebook link in one of the menus and purchase the ebook. You won't be disappointed. Lots of people are succeeding because of this. It's dedicated to helping you with this particular part of the test, but it will also help you in your everyday life as well. Of course, you can use this vocabulary. It's a natural level of vocabulary that you can use almost anywhere. Now, Sam, if our viewers want to, we're nearly out of time, we've just about run out of time, but if our viewers want to contact you, how can they do that?
You can best contact me with my email, which is Sam Varley, so that's SAMVARLEY 2010 at gmail.com. That's the best way you can contact me. And sure, like you mentioned, for buying the ebook, you can go to English with an expert website.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Sam. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
It's been a pleasure for me too. Thank you, Andy. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.